Don't worry that you don't know all the answers. All you need to do is ask the questions. All you have to do is ask a reasonable question, make a valid point, and back it up with data. That's it. That's the secret formula. And you will get your message heard.
Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I'm your host, Kavita, and the founder of Power Purpose Play, a global community of women in midlife. I'm here to tell you that it's your time now to rediscover what has always been inside of you and bring that out into the world. If you're wondering what's next, but don't know quite what that is, or if you feel a twinge in your heart telling you that you have so much more to do and so much more to offer, you're in the right place. Ask yourself, if not now, when? Do you want to leave your job, start your own business, take control of your health, reignite the passion in your marriage, write that book, or at least that first chapter? Transitions like this can be daunting, but through listening to my story and interviews with incredible women every week, I hope to inspire you to take action. I rediscovered myself after the age of 50, and I know you can too. It's my time now to help you do just that. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. Before we start, thank you for tuning in to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I don't take it lightly that you're here, spending your time for your own personal growth. Whether you are a regular listener or a new one, welcome. My passion and mission with this podcast and all that I do is to help you rediscover who you are so you can bring it out into the world with confidence. And there are several ways you can do that. I'm so excited to share that my self-directed online course called It's My Time Now is completely revamped with updated resources, materials, exercises, and tools to get you started on your journey of rediscovery today. Whether you like independent learning, one-on-one coaching, or a hybrid model, reach out to me today to see what is right for you. You can visit our website at itsmytimenowcoaching.com to find out more. And in the meantime, you can download our free confidence guide below and also book a free coaching session with me to learn more. If you're wondering what's next in your life, I can help you answer that question. Links are below. Don't hesitate. Remember, if not now, when? Hi, my friend, and I hope you're doing really well today. I have a lot on my mind today, so I think I'm going to jump right in. I had a lot of thoughts today, and that stemmed from re-listening to my podcast interview with Sandy Rosenthal, which you were about to hear, which is so motivating and I think really is relevant to all of us. I was thinking about why certain people, despite what we all perceive as unimaginable obstacles in their way, seem to still succeed. Have you ever thought about those people in the world that maybe have started from having nothing, for example, but have gone on to not only achieve what they set out to do, but go way beyond that to influence millions to do the same? Of course, the great leaders from all walks of life come to mind, like Gandhiji or the Dalai Lama or Mother Teresa, or even business revolutionaries like Steve Jobs, or artists, famous artists like the Beatles, or more recently, Ed Sheeran, for example. What do all these people have in common? But forget about even famous people I've mentioned. What about people like Erin Brockovich, for example, or Sandy Rosenthal, whose interview you're just going to listen to, whose stories are so similar? Why do they go forward and achieve what they have all set out to do, and then even more? There really was nothing special about each of these examples. They were or are ordinary people. How did they get so lucky? Or was it luck? I don't believe it's luck at all. As I thought about it, I boiled it down to 3 reasons. Number one, they had a passion for something within them that just burned inside of them so brightly that they could not let it go. They listened to that passion within them and acted upon it. They didn't ignore it, but asked, why is this present? What does this mean for me? And what am I going to do about it? We all have passions of some sort, and some of us, more than others, have identified what they are. Some people know their passions from a young age, and others, like me, found their passions later in life. But this is what drives them. This is what pushes them forward. But that can't be all there is to it. What else? When you think about doing something but hesitate, there are really only two reasons why. Number one, there is a block in front of you. And number two, you are not letting that thing in. So first you have to remove the block. And next, you have to let that thing in. You have to be able to accept it. The blocks can come in many forms, but ultimately, blocks are created within ourselves. If, for example, we believe we can't fight for what we believe in because we have a legitimate physical condition which prevents us from doing so, we will be blocked. But look at Sandy. She has a hearing impairment and a speech impediment, but she still spoke out loudly for what she thought was an injustice in this world. Her physical condition did not block her. The other side of the coin is not letting things in. What are you not letting into your life? Is it money, for example? Do you believe that you don't deserve all the money that you actually want? It is there for you. All you have to do is be willing to receive it. What about relationships? We stop the flow of positive energy in the form of relationships, money, health, or other things because we just don't let these things in. I was thinking about how our bodies heal themselves when we have an injury. If we get a cut on our finger, for example, what happens? Our bodies naturally bring forth all the necessary components to heal that cut without us doing anything. There is no resistance to the healing process. There are no blocks put up. Our bodies accept the natural healing power and we get better. I know this may sound counterintuitive to you, but I bring this up because I also realized today that I am not letting some things into my life, which I know are just waiting for me to receive. My block is that maybe I don't deserve it. But when I lift that block and actually allow myself to receive the thing, when I open the gate and let it all in, all the possibilities will also flood in. And it is my job to accept what feels good and go for what feels right. I was inspired today to share this with you because I want to share that you can be and do or have anything you want. You just have to let it in with no resistance or blocks. It's not easy, but it can be done. Let the flow of positive energy come your way and see what happens. That's what happened to all of these quote unquote famous people, and it can happen to you too. What do you really want, my friend? Enjoy this episode, and I'll be here at the end with my key takeaways. Welcome, everyone, to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast, a podcast for women in transition in their careers and life. I'm your host, Kavita Ahuja, and my goal with this podcast is to inspire you to realize your true inner power and potential, and to help you unleash all that resides within you and bring it out into the world with confidence. If you may be going through transitions in your career or your life and wondering what's next, I'm here to tell you that you can do this, and I want you to believe and say with confidence, it's my time now. To this end, I interview incredible women for this podcast who share their stories of reinvention and who will give you their advice on how to overcome the obstacles in your way to reach your vision for yourself in your next stage of life. Today, I'm very pleased to have on the show Sandy Rosenthal. If any of you have heard about the famous environmental activist Erin Brockovich, you will be interested to learn about Sandy's story, which is remarkably similar, and one of the reasons I had to bring her on the show today. At the age of 48, Sandy realized that her entire life had prepared her to stand up to the most powerful engineering outfit in the world and win. After Hurricane Katrina and the federal levee failures in New Orleans, Sandy Rosenthal founded the nonprofit levees.org with 25,000 supporters worldwide. Her book, Words Whispered in Water, is about how she led an investigative team to expose the culprit in the levee breach disaster, the Army Corps of Engineers, and how the agency spent millions covering up its mistakes. Sandy is an advocate for the 62% of the American population living by levees. She hosts a weekly podcast called Beat the Big Guys, where she coaches her national audience on how to take on the big guys in their own communities. In her spare time, Sandy plays tennis 5 days a week, practices yoga, teaches her dogs silly tricks, and spends time every month with her 2 grandchildren in San Francisco. Thank you for being here, Sandy. It's really an honor to have you here. Welcome.
I'm delighted. Thank you.
How are you today?
I'm wonderful. I'm happy to say after COVID, it seemed that I kept catching cold after cold after cold to make up for the 3 years of having nothing. And I never did catch COVID. I'm very fortunate. But
oh, wow. That's great.
I'm very fortunate. I think I'm just lucky. But I feel fabulous. Thank you.
Fantastic. You look great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Sandy, I kind of referred to your story in the introduction, and I guess we could just get right into it. And tell me, how did you decide to take on the issue about the flooding in New Orleans and during Hurricane Katrina, and what circumstances led you to that, I guess, in your life? Maybe just tell us a little bit about your reinvention story, I guess.
Well, certainly there was an event that the entire world watched on television for weeks. And that was the day the levees broke during actually a moderate hurricane in New Orleans. In Mississippi, it was a huge storm, but in New Orleans, we had the outer rings. But the storm surge from those outer rings of a moderate hurricane were enough to break the levees, which should have held. And so that was the kaboom event in my life that upended my life and the life of everyone I know in the city of New Orleans. And I ended up having to relocate so that my child could go to school, my one remaining child. My other 2 had already gone off to college and one graduated, but I still had a child. Relocated in another city and had to cope. And throughout this coping, I kept feeling like the world was being told a lie, that the world was being told that we deserved what happened to us and that we're all stupid for living in New Orleans and imbeciles for wanting to rebuild. And I just felt in my bones that story was backward. So I went on a quest and to find out the truth. And with about a month after Hurricane Katrina, which I explain all the details in my book, but about a month after Hurricane Katrina, I felt that I had the truth in my hands, and I set out, little me. I'm not an engineer, and I with no public speaking experience, decided I was going to tell the world the true story. It's crazy.
Wow.
But a huge life altering event can make someone do, and what in hindsight is crazy things.
Yes.
Crazy meaning that's impossible. You won't be able to do it. You know, who do you think you are? So that's what spurred me to action, this event that affected me and everyone I know. And then, one thing led to another. I didn't figure everything out overnight. It did take a couple of years and then even more time, but that's what spurred me to action. And keep in mind, the reason I compare myself to Erin Brockovich is she had no lawyer training. And she managed to do what she did because she believed in what she was doing. And that's the similarity. Me, I had no engineering training, no special training at all, but pulled this off. And that's the focus of my book. And a lot of that is very relevant to your show, which I look forward to talking about more.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. I mean, you said you didn't have any experience, but what you did have was belief in what you did and the courage to go for it, despite you said not having the qualifications that people would think you'd have to have in order to go after these big corporations, right? So can you tell me a little bit, or tell our audience a little bit about kind of, I mean, you said you didn't have the courage. How did it lead up in your life? Tell me a little bit about your life. I understand you had a bit of a speech impairment as you were growing up. And how did you overcome that and gain even greater confidence that a lot of people wouldn't ever imagine having to do what you did? So tell us a little bit about your backstory.
So I'm going to talk to your listeners about two things: what gave me the courage, and something that very few people understand. Most people are able to understand glasses. You put on glasses and you can see. And you can see often as good as a 20-year-old, assuming you don't have severe eyesight issues. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People believe that if someone puts in hearing aids, they have normal hearing and they have the hearing of a 20-year-old. Not true at all. Hearing is very, very different. It's different in almost every way. And in my case, I was born with hearing that's not normal, lesser than normal hearing. But here's the crazy thing. When you talk about somebody such as myself, it's called hearing loss. Well, I never had the hearing in the first place. So how could I lose it? It's just the word choice to explain it is crazy. But without getting into all of that, I'm going to write an article about that one day. But I was born without normal hearing. And when your hearing is different from everybody else, you hear things differently. And I'm going to give you an example. When someone said the word chicken, as in buck, buck, the hen, I hear chicken. I hear chicken. That's what I hear. So I said it. And that's what every little child does. They repeat what they hear.
Sure.
And that was just one of the sounds that I said wrong. I said lots and lots of sounds wrong. I went to public school 55 years ago, and no one sent me to speech therapy. And so I grew up with all of these odd little speech issues, for lack of a better word. Okay. Then combine that with my hearing. There's not a word to describe hearing blindness, but hearing disability. So combine those two. Yeah, it was a bit of a struggle, and it took me years. I learned to lip read. My lip reading is very good. Now in a crowded restaurant, I can hear just fine. If I can see you, I can hear you.
Really? How interesting.
I got a competitive advantage now. But going back to my past, I'd struggled with hearing. I struggled with speaking. And then finally, at the age of 40, I took speech therapy. And I practiced. My jaw was sore from working on it. I had to re-speak all of my words. But the beauty of it is you can practice all day long, every day. So by the time the levees broke, I'd had this new self-confidence in my speaking that when the time came for me to do something about it, to do something about this problem that I saw, I had the confidence in my speaking.
Wow.
So that's the timing thing. It was luck. I really honestly say, I don't think I would have taken on this cause if I didn't have my confidence and my ability to be understood.
That's incredible. I honestly, firstly, to be able to overcome what we can, people would think is a normal, we take it for granted, let's put it this way, right? When we have a normal hearing or vision, and to have you explain it in the way you did, and that you hear differently, and it seems normal to you, but when people listen to you, it's like, oh, it's what's happening here, right? So you must have gone through a lot of pressures when you were in school, a lot of maybe bullying, I'm not sure, but the fact that you overcame that to do what you did, that takes so much courage.
If
Amazing.
I can give your listeners, one takeaway, shouting does not help. Shouting does not help. It makes it worse, actually, because shouting changes the words. It changes just if someone ever says, what, excuse me, just repeat it again, a little bit slower, a little more clearly.
Well, doesn't mean that you have to shout something if you're passionate about it, right? you can just speak it with emphasis, right?
Well, actually, what I was referring to, and I probably wasn't clear, but whenever someone says to you, what? And especially if it's an older person and you figure, oh,
Oh,
this
I
person's
see.
hearing, this person's hearing is not as good as it should be. And it is a common thing for people to shout the second time. That's what I was referring
Oh,
to.
okay. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay. I
Yeah.
see
And
that.
it doesn't
Yeah.
help. It doesn't help. There's
No.
actually a book out with the title Shouting Doesn't Help,
Okay.
written by someone with similar issues as I
Yeah.
do.
I didn't realize that actually. My dad, he's just turned 90, and he really was resistant on getting hearing aids because he said you put them on and you can't hear, like, you hear all the external background, and he finally found one that he likes. And sometimes I do that, and it's just a natural thing. Like if he doesn't hear me the first time, then I might say it louder. But that's a really good tip that you shared.
And your dad has the same experience that I've gone through. I've tried them as well. They don't fit. Your ear is sensitive. They don't fit
Yeah.
very well. And
Yeah.
then you have to go back and get them adjusted. And then the sound of silverware on a plate is too loud and you got to adjust it and you go back and you go back and forth. And eventually you just get fed up and you throw them in a drawer. And there's
Yeah.
probably billions of dollars worth of hearing aids in a drawer in this country.
Yes. So, Sandy, I just wanted to go back to how you explained how you got the courage to speak up. And I just wanted to, maybe if you could say to our listeners who maybe somebody's considering leading a cause such as you are, and that they're really passionate about, but they have fear, or they're fearful, they're not confident in themselves, they don't know what to do or how to go about doing it. What are some pieces of advice you would give these ladies or these women who might be considering that?
That's a great question. And what I'm going to do is give pieces of advice for someone just getting started. Okay. Because that's the make or break time. You either do or you don't. And
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning, don't worry that you don't know everything. And do not be concerned if like me, you're not an expert in that thing that you want to work with. Erin Brockovich, like I said, didn't know anything about law, but she didn't let that stop her, because you will find people who can help you with
Mm-hmm.
these expertise. If you see a wrong in your community and you stand up and you say, I'm going to do something about this, I want to fix this, the experts will come to you the moment you speak out. They will come to you. They will
Mm-hmm.
seek you out. They will find you out. So don't worry about that. Don't worry about money. There are lots of people who would love to take a public stance and be a public face, but can't because they're concerned about job security or
Mm-hmm.
concerned about who knows what. These are the people that'll be happy to fund you. And if you're not a 501c3, you don't have to reveal who your funders are. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
the money will come. The experts will come. Don't worry that you don't know all the answers. All you need to do is ask the questions. That's all
Mm-hmm.
you need to do. Ask the questions. And it's a simple formula that I once got applauded for by a news reporter for NBC National News, CBS National News. She said, all you have to do is ask a reasonable question, make a valid point, and back it up with data.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's the secret formula. And you will get your message heard. You will even get something that is very valuable, and that is media and press coverage, because it's free and it really
Yes.
helps you further the reach of your message. So one last time, because it's so important, ask a reasonable question, make a valid point, back it up with the data.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's so important because often and many times when I coach women and they're wanting to do something like this, and they're in this stage in life, or they're at a transition point where they want to do the next thing, whether that's leave a job or maybe pursue a passion that they have that's inside of them, or whatever it may be. And it all comes down to a little bit of that fear, right? It's that fear of I'm not qualified enough. I'm not good enough. What will people think? How do I even get started? I can't do this, right? So I love that. You don't have to be an expert. Don't worry about the money. It'll come. And experts will come.
Experts will come.
Experts will come. Yeah. Yeah. As long as you take, and I always say, you don't need to have it all figured out. It's just about taking the one step and going with your gut a lot of the time. And it feels like that's what you told me in the beginning, is that you had that. What did you say? I wrote it down.
I probably said something like felt it in my bones.
You felt it in your bones. That's it. Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so important to listen to, right? That voice or that feeling inside of us that tells us that something's wrong and I want to do something about it.
And there's just one other thing. Don't be concerned that you might get criticism. That is evidence that you're right, or at least at the minimum on the right path. So if you get criticism, and it will come from the people that benefit from keeping the status quo. If you're out there to change something, there are people who benefit from things not changing. Those are the folks that will criticize. And what's the first thing they do? Go after the messenger. Mm-hmm. They'll go after you. And here's a common one. As they did to me, well, I'm not an engineer. Why would anyone listen to me? Okay. And you just meet. I actually devoted an entire episode of my podcast on what you say to someone when they go after you. And there's so many. The number one thing is just be polite about it and recognize what's happening. They don't have a leg to stand on. They can't argue the facts. Oh, well, let's just go after the messenger.
Right. Right.
So, and it will come, but just don't fear it. And especially when you've got your belief in your bones, as we talked about, and you've got Kavita and Sandy to help you.
That's absolutely right. I think that's so true. And oftentimes what happens, I don't know if you experienced this, but I certainly did, is that when even people who are closest to you, right? Like maybe family or close friends, and you tell them that you're going to be doing this thing or you're going after your passion or whatever, oftentimes they'll be questioning that. And it's not out of a place of negativity. It's just a place of caring, that they don't want you to be hurt or fail, or they want you to be comfortable, right? And so I often tell women that that's okay, but comfort's not going to make you move ahead. So it's good to listen to them, but also then to say, thanks, but I've got this. Any comments on that?
You beautifully worded.
Yes.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And even though family is important, I couldn't have gotten through the past 18 years without my family supporting me. And while family support is important, their approval when you decide to go on your quest, or their approval when you make a decision on the direction that your group will take, is not required or necessary. And often you're going to do the opposite of what they suggest. Yes. So I guess my takeaway from that is, don't have your family be everything. Your family is part of who you are and part of your support group, but they're not the only support group. There's also friends and colleagues. Mm-hmm. And then the people you meet, all those people, the day you do open your mouth and the day people do come to you and say, you're right, I'd like to join you. You've created this huge network of folks who will become your friends.
Yes. So how did you get the courage to do this?
How did I get the courage to do this? I think it was anger at being told we deserved what happened to us just for living in New Orleans, anger at blaming the victims. And a lot of people died. The official count recently came out as recently as January of this year, but it's nearly 1,400 souls were lost within a few hours. So it was anger that how could we be blamed for this disaster, which was not our fault? Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest, is that anger, that outrageousness made me decide I had to do something about it. And I tried to find someone else who was already doing the work that I felt needed to be done. Mm-hmm. And I spent a full week, which at the time I felt that seemed like an eternity to me. A week. I spent a week looking for someone else, found nobody. And then I said, well, I need a spokesperson. And I spent another week, wasted another week trying to find someone to be a spokesperson, someone famous, which is hard to do.
Yeah.
It's hard to do. So I said, well, I guess I'm going to have to do it.
Right.
And then I said, until I find a spokesperson. Well, so to this day, I still am the spokesperson. I'm the founder and president. But I will point out, this is if I can, I'm just going to take a few seconds to
Please
say,
do. Go ahead.
if you can get a famous celebrity to speak for your cause, get them if you can, but you don't have to. You don't, it's not critical. It's not necessary. But if you can get one. And I actually was able to get the great actor, John Goodman.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But that was later. That came a couple of years later. So you can be your spokesperson. And in fact, I'll say this, you're the best, because you will become, you will become the best person through your expertise that you've developed, and through your own personal passion.
Yes. And I believe that's so important, because the reason, the why that we do things, sometimes it actually should be more important than, it's bigger than us. Do you know what I mean? Like the belief, the passion, whether it's anger or belief that this is wrong, the reason behind it should become bigger than us. Like we shouldn't be like, oh, if we have something to say, should say it and not worry about like, what are people going to say about us? So it's kind of take it away from us ourselves, if that makes sense. Hi, my friend. Kavita here. Do you often feel blocked from moving forward? We all feel that way at times. These are referred to as energy blocks. I've created a short, actionable PDF guide to help you release your negative energy blocks. Click the link in the description to download it now for free. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Right, always. In fact, I never use the word I just said it just now, but whenever talking about the organization that I created, I always say we. Yes. I'm in a habit of saying we did this, we did that, we did that. Yeah. And if anyone says thank you to me, I said, well, it was my idea in the beginning. That and my son, who was just 15 years old at the time.
Wow. Amazing. That's really great. Really great. So Sandy, you mentioned your podcast. Mm-hmm. It's called Beat the Big Guys. And so tell me a little bit about that, and what is the aim of the podcast? And I know that we talked a little bit about Erin Brockovich before, and how are your stories similar, and what is the aim of the podcast, and some of the things that you talk about?
Sure. For years, the idea of having a podcast like this was always a fantasy for me, because for years and years and years, I had to subject myself. That's probably not a good word, because every interview I had, I was grateful for it. It was an opportunity to improve and further the reach of the message. But all those interviews, I wished I could pick the questions. And I have been asked, why did you decide to do this 1,000 times? Why did I decide to take on the Army Corps of Engineers 1,000 times? And I've always thought, I wish I could do my own show and talk about how to beat the big guys, whoever they may be. Okay. And so this is a fantasy that I've had for a long time, because really what I did, anyone can do. If I could do it, anyone could do it. There were just a couple of little tools and tricks. And there was no Beat the Big Guys podcast when I started out. I had to learn by the seat of my pants.
Yes.
I had some help, but I had to learn a lot by the seat of my pants. There's a lot of things I wish someone had told me way, way back in the beginning. So this is a fantasy. And the other huge fantasy is me with my speech and my hearing. I'm actually doing a podcast. How crazy is that?
That's amazing.
Congratulations. But that's the second way.
I think you said you just finished recording your 78th episode. Is that right?
78th episode.
Wow. Congratulations.
I wanted to help people with their causes. I felt like I had something to offer. Yeah. And that was the other part of the fantasy. Last but not least, I also now realize when you interview someone, that's a lot of work, because you've got to do all your homework. You've got to know the person you're interviewing. You've got to know a lot about them. You've got to have good questions lined up. I had no clue how hard it was to be the interviewer.
Yes. Yeah.
Until I was on the other side. So all those people out there who've interviewed me in the past, thank you. I had no idea how hard your job was.
That's one of the things I love about this, actually, is really understanding the person that I'm talking to and really researching their background and meeting them ahead of time. And because it's easy to ask general questions, but it's more difficult to really get to the heart of why somebody is doing what they're doing. And so you said that you give tips on how to beat the big guys. Is there I know that you probably have 100, but maybe a few to kind of share.
I do. I still hope that people come listen to an episode or two of my show.
Yeah, we'll have it in the show notes for sure.
Great.
Yes.
But I figured out after I don't know 50 episodes or so of listening to all the different types of big guys out there. It could be big oil, big pharma, big ag, big hog. There's all kinds of forces out there that we need to beat. A homeowners association. That was my most recent one. So I came to the conclusion after all these interviews that the big guys are no different from the bullies in the 4th grade playground. No different. And once you frame whoever they are in terms of bullies on the 4th grade playground, all of a sudden they're imminently and absolutely beatable when you think of them that way. And I go through, I actually devoted an episode to how the big guys are no different from 4th grade kids. Okay. And I could tell you now if we have just a minute or two.
Please. Yeah.
Sure. Ahead. Okay. So, well, first of all, they're big and they're usually bigger in stature. The 4th grade bully. Why is another conversation, but they're usually big, these bullies. Okay.
Yeah.
But they're not smarter. In fact, they're usually not as smart as you are. Okay. So that's issue number one. They're bigger, but so what? They're bigger. The second is they're thin skinned. They have low self-esteem. The big guys are deathly afraid of anything that can harm their goodwill, their public image. Deathly afraid. And then the third thing is these bullies, because they're generally not as smart as you, and because they have this thin-skinned mentality that they're scared all the time. They're really scared. Is they make mistakes, and they make big mistakes, and all you have to do is wait and recognize. And when you see that mistake, just exploit it, draw attention to it, shine the light on it. And that's when you can do what I mentioned before, raise a valid question, make a valid point, and back it up with data. So anyway, when you think of the big guys as just the bullies on the 4th grade playground, it's a piece of cake.
That's amazing. So they're bigger in stature, they're thin-skinned, they have low self-esteem, and they make mistakes.
Because of their they think just because they're big, they're invincible.
Yes.
And they make mistakes because of that. And they all do. They all do.
Huh. And it's interesting you've called it beat the big guys, right? So
notice I don't call them the bad guys.
Or I was just going to say the girls.
Yeah.
Because I was just going to ask you, because as women, there's that added, I guess, perception that we can't beat the big guys. And tell me a little bit about that, from your experience, and for women predominantly listening to this podcast. Like, as women, how do we do that? Is there a different formula, or is there something more difficult for us? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, even though it's 2023, we're not there yet. I've recently finished a book, When Women Stood, about how far women have come and how a lot of the women have improved life for women in sports. Sports is a big area, but there's an entire book devoted to that named Alex Allred. But two things real quick. When I selected the title, Beat the Big Guys, in my mind, guys was gender neutral. It's a common phrase. Well, you guys come over here, but you guys can mean men and women.
Sure.
So it was meant to be gender neutral, but you raise a good point, and it's hard. I spent a long time trying to come up with a title, and I finally come up with a title. And
it's a great title. I didn't mean it that way. I just
you didn't.
I just more about how as women we can beat the big guys. Yeah. Yeah. And if it's more difficult,
Even though
it,
it would be a valid point, even though you didn't mean that. But as women, oh, absolutely. And
mm-hmm,
there have been many times in my work leading levees.org that I would receive responses from some of the naysayers that were very confusing to me. And it would
mm-hmm,
take some of my male colleagues to say to me, Sandy, don't pay any attention to Mr. X. He's a male chauvinist. And
mm-hmm.
my response would be, oh, I went to an all women's college, and when you're at an all women's college for 4 years, you're told you can do everything, and it doesn't occur to you that you can't.
You can't.
And so
Yeah.
when I do see statements that are born from this attitude, this old-fashioned attitude, and sure enough, these Mr. X's and Y's were often 10 or more years older than me now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So with each passing day, things are improving, but we're not there yet.
Yes. That's wonderful. And Sandy, have you, with your inspiration and your podcast and your movement, like have you seen some in your work? Have you seen some other people stand up to things that they're passionate about? Like I think you met Erin Brockovich. Have you know how she's probably inspired a ton of people to do it. Like is there some examples of women or other people who have taken your examples and ran with it, or just from your experience?
A gentleman listened to my podcast, and after listening to it, he says, "You know what?" I said, after listening to what you did, I says, I've decided I'm going to do something about it as well." And I don't really know what it was, and he didn't offer, and I didn't ask. But that was the whole reason I did the podcast.
Yeah, we want to inspire people, right? Yeah,
right. And even if it was just that one person, it would be, in my mind, it would be worth it. And I certainly hope that there's a lot more. I can't say that there's a lot of people that have rushed to me to say, "Oh, I've decided to take it on, on something in my community because of what I've said." But I that could change tomorrow.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is. Just from listening to you, I'm motivated to, like, because if you see some injustice in your community or in the world, like, and you have an inkling or a desire, or as you said, in your bones, feel like it in your bones, you want to make a difference, then to do it, take your example. So that's wonderful. So what's in it? What's your mission now? And is there, what are you doing now, and what's next for you?
Well, I'm enjoying doing the podcast so much that I'm going to keep doing the podcast and hopefully continue to inspire others. But the big project, believe it or not, the 20th anniversary of the levee breach event in New Orleans is 2 years from now.
Really?
And
wow.
And I'm already have big plans for what's going to happen on that anniversary. There'll be a gala, there'll be a special bike ride of all the levee breach events and all kinds of things. And what we're going to unveil in 1 month from now at the anniversary of the 18th anniversary of the levee breach event is we are initiating a campaign to make sure that every single engineering student in this country, when they graduate from college, that they have a thorough understanding of engineering disasters and failures and what can be learned from them. Because currently, right now, there is no requirement that they have that kind of preparation when they go out into the world. None.
That is incredible. That's really awesome.
I know, it's mind-bending.
It's awesome that you're initiating this in schools because, if they're not taught it, then right. So how are they to know? So
how are they to know? And it's always been assumed that they had been. Nope, they're not. And so we've started a campaign to make that happen, and we'll be kicking that off in about, what's today, the 25th?
Today? 2027.
Okay, so there we go.
The 24th. Sorry, yes.
24th.
I'm ahead of myself. Yes.
A little less than a month, we're going to be kicking off that campaign in August.
How are you? Is that like nationwide kind of thing? Or?
It's a press conference, and yes, it's absolutely nationwide.
Wow. Well,
we need to make sure that every engineering college in the country, not just the ones here in Louisiana.
Yeah, that's a wonderful cause, and I find that young people now, they really are really motivated to make a difference in their communities, even maybe more so than we were when we were growing up. I just feel like there's, with the environmental issues and so many other things that young ones are really taking
younger and younger.
yeah, they're taking the lead. I don't know
Yeah,
if you find that, but that's what I see in my,
I do. I absolutely do.
yes, wonderful. Well, this has been fascinating, Sandy. And I don't know if there's anything you want to kind of maybe leave off with, some comments. Women who are listening are, as I said before, they're kind of in this stage where they're really wanting to do something with their life more than that they have inside, but are held back by fears or other obstacles. And they just need to develop that courage muscle, I guess, to go for it. So anything that you'd like to kind of end with, or
Just, I guess it's just one last thing is when you're out there and you're giving your elevator speech, it's important to get your cause down to an elevator speech. Okay. So when you're out there in your elevator or on a ski lift or wherever you are giving your short speech on what you do and why you're doing it. And if someone comes back with a question that absolutely has nothing to do with the point, it's what they're doing is they're trying to change the subject. And it's a similar thing to criticizing you. Okay. It's changing the subject, and just recognize it when it happens and smile and let it go and consider it evidence that you're on the right track and you're doing the right thing. Because if they can't ask you a relevant, intelligent question about your cause, it means that you've bothered them somehow.
Yes.
And rather than discuss it, they'd rather just change the subject.
Ignore it.
So
yes.
consider that evidence that you're on the right track and on the right path.
It's a bit of a victory, right? Yes, that's wonderful.
Yes, it is.
Yes, fantastic. That's a great point. I never really
changing
thought of it that
the subject.
Yeah, I never really thought of it that way. It's a very good point. Mm-hmm. Very good point. So Sandy, tell us how people can reach you and where they can find you and all that good stuff. We'll have everything in the show notes, like I said, but if you want to share.
Sure. Yeah. I like to keep things simple. We called our website levees.org. Yes. levees.org. And if someone wants to reach me, again, simple, it's my name, sandyrosenthal.net. NET.
Perfect. And yes, I'm actually encourage everyone to listen to your podcast as well. Beat the Big Guys. And we'll have that in the link. It sounds very interesting and inspiring for many. So good luck with that. And congratulations on achieving 78 episodes already. So that's wonderful. And good luck to you. And congratulations for all the amazing work that you've done and to bring this initiative forward. It's important. And it's a lesson for all of us that if we have something in our minds and our hearts that we feel is wrong, to really go for it and don't worry about so much about us, about ourselves, about what people are going to think, but about what the ultimate result will be, right?
And the friends you'll make.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we've made.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yes. Well, thank you again, Sandy. I really appreciate you being on the show and good luck.
Okay.
Take care. I trust you enjoyed this inspiring interview with Sandy Rosenthal, and it prompted you to think of those things that you are passionate about. What is stopping you from going for them? Here are her key takeaways. Number 1, a huge life-altering event can make someone do what in hindsight are crazy or impossible things. Number 2, I don't think I would have taken on this cause if I didn't have my confidence and my ability to be understood. Number 3, in the beginning, don't worry that you don't know everything or that you're not an expert. Don't worry about money. People will be happy to fund you. The money and the experts will come. Number 4, don't worry that you don't have all the answers. All you need to do is ask the questions. That's all you need to do. Ask the questions. Number 5, all you have to do is ask a reasonable question, make a valid point, and back it up with data. You will get your message heard. Number 6, if you see a wrong in your community, don't be concerned that you may get criticism. That is evidence that you are on the right path. Number 7, while family support is important, their approval when you decide to go on your quest is not required or necessary. Don't have your family be everything. They are part of who you are and your support group, but not the only thing. Number 8, you can be your spokesperson. In fact, you're the best because you will become the best person through your expertise and the passion that you develop. Number 9, the big guys are no different from the bullies in the 4th grade playground. When you frame it that way, all of a sudden, they are beatable. Thank you for listening, and remember, if you're wondering how to go after your passion, or even find out what it is, reach out to me for a complimentary coaching consultation, or visit my website at itsmytimenowcoaching.com to find out more about my newly updated online course called It's My Time Now. Thank you, and see you next time. Stay well and stay safe.